Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we have a special third co-host. Why is that, Bobby? Why do you have a third co-host? Why is it not just an interview? Because it's way too early draft week, people, and you already know that if you read the title, but we are looking at offensive players this week. Defensive players later in the week, which, by the way, I'm more excited for the defensive players. Like, I might, by the end of this week, have my flag in the sand, as we like to say.
Yeah.
And we're going defense in the first round of the 2025 NFL draft. But Justin, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Bobby Skinner. I am not the Dominican Republic, and I still have my beard. Life has kind of gotten in the way. Send some good thoughts to the family. How about that? I got one of my family members is struggling with a little bit of a health condition. So Bobby just sent me his thoughts, and I love that, and now my brain is fucked up.
I usually kind of hate to send the thoughts because it's like, well, what do thoughts do? But I'm also not going to I don't want to nitpick when your family member is going through something.
It's true. So I still have the beard, so thank you to the 500 plus people that love my beard online. And last week I went to that Giants Night of Legends at the MSG Theater. Happy if I saw you. It was great to see everybody again. But that event was really cool, man. Like, even outside of they showed like a 2.5 minute snippet of Hard Knocks, which was really cool. That's going to be airing in a week from now, which I'm really excited for that. Got announced that Joe Shane and the Giants have final editorial say, so I got mad that we won't be seeing some of the juicy stuff that I guess I thought I had a hope that we would be seeing. And also, the event went from like 6:45 to 10 o'clock at night, and it was just stories from going back to the guys of the Giants, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000 team, and of course the 07 and the 11 team. Just a night literally with legends. The Giants didn't take any shortcuts or cut any corners. It was a really fun night. So shout out to them. I want to give kudos to them when I can.
Grump, how are you?
I'm doing great. I am also not in the Dominican Republic and have a beard going on. Kind of off-season stuff. We have on my show, Just Giants, we have our pens and pencils starting next week.
Yes.
We recorded that first episode. I got to edit that down, and that's going to be airing tomorrow, actually. So
wait, hey, is it you guys?
The first episode I ever listened to one of your guys was a pens and pencil back in 2020.
Yes, same with me. And because even though we don't do it, I love schedule picking, even though I hate doing it as a personality, but I love listening to it. Is it like half the season, one episode, and then the other half the season, the other episode?
No. We broke it down into it got all screwed up because now it's 17 games. Now it makes it an uneven split. So we try to trickle it in with news. So it's not just like 5 episodes you can skip. You know what I mean? So we stretch it out so we did the first 3 games, I think. First 3 or first 4.
You're going to make us wait?
Oh, but it's fun that way. It's fun listening to our asinine reasons for why we are so confident about something that's happening 6 months away, and you have no idea who's going to be hurt or not. But this year, what I'm going to do, I've already started to do, is I'm editing them down, our predictions, into 2-minute things, and we're going to keep them for when we actually get to that game in regular season, so we can kind of laugh at ourselves.
Yeah,
it's not asinine if it's the Panthers. We're winning that game. We're whipping their ass, and I'm celebrating it like the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I'm bringing up old tweets because people are like, you can't be confident against any team. Yes, I can. We're beating the Panthers. But we are looking at quarterbacks today. Now, we have 8 players, 4 quarterbacks, a wide receiver, a tight end, and then 2 offensive linemen. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. We've only done 4 quarterbacks ever on this episode, despite the fact that this is our 5th year doing it. We did Malik Willis and Sam Howell 1 year, which I think we were pretty right on those takes. And then we did Anthony Richardson and Hendon Hooker, and we correctly man, this Richardson guy, despite the lack of playing time, some issues, I can see this guy being the guy in the first round. So that was nice. This year we're looking at 4, which put me to have a new rule that we can only do 2 early. But we're going through 4. So we're going to go look at Carson, Beck, Shedeur Sanders, Connor Weigman, and then
Donavon Smith.
and
then Donavon Smith. Grump, I want to ask you, how would you rank these four before we get into them?
I think it's difficult. So while 4 quarterbacks is too many to do for this episode going forward, I think that in this particular year, all 4 of these guys have some kind of unique circumstance that makes 20, and this is going to sound stupid because it's true every year, but specifically for these four guys, 2024 season is going to make or break what happens here. Carson Beck is one of the four that had the benefit of sitting for a while before being thrown into the wolves. But I would say that Carson Beck is my top of the line here. Shedeur Sanders, everything that happened from like week 5 on last year is kind of a waste to really truly grade him too hard on. I would actually put him second. Donavon Smith at Houston, Houston is Houston. I would like to see replication. And hopefully he has a stronger team around him this year. I would put him third, and Connor Weigman's like barely played at all. So it's really difficult. And which one of these guys take the biggest leap this year is really going to determine that order, I think. And that sounds stupid, but like, I've never been so unsure for these kind of guys right now.
Yeah. And I've watched a couple other that we're not talking about, like Jackson Dart, and Carson Beck is my clear one, like right. clear cut number one, not even a thought. Weigman, I put on here because our friend Trevor Sikkema, from PFF, he put him as his QB1. So I was like, okay, I'm interested despite the fact that there's a little playing time. And I see what he likes, but I also am like, man, this is a little bit of a mess too, and a big part from Texas A&M, which we'll cover when we talk about him. But I would maybe put him too, just because I can see him reaching heights that Shedeur Sanders is not going to hit with Shedeur Sanders' talent. And then Donavon Smith would be last, just based off of just bad. He's the only one who just misses throws consistently out of the four that we're going to talk about. But let's start with Carson Beck first. And I'll be honest, I thought, like you said, he sat for a while. I was thinking of Georgia. I thought this guy was going to be like a true freshman or, a redshirt freshman or something who had sat for 1 year. I didn't realize that he was a redshirt, he's a redshirt junior. So Carson Beck, the quarterback out of Georgia, 6'4", 215 pounds, had almost 4,000 yards last year, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I mean, he's like your traditional pocket passing quarterback, which we really don't see much of with, top quarterbacks anymore, which speaks a little to the class. But even like CJ Stroud's a pocket passer, but we can see CJ Stroud move around. He just didn't do it a ton. And he's a pocket passer because he just doesn't have the athleticism, right? He's long, he's a little skinny. He just doesn't have that athleticism to be a creator. And I think that's his biggest negative. But all the other things compared to the rest, to me, he's clearly the best. Like, I actually think he reads defenses pretty damn well, right? I like reading the safety, firing the ball, all over the field. He doesn't have like this rocket arm, but he puts a ball with some velocity all over the field, throwing outside the numbers really well. Never really has any misses except for, one here or there. And those are like fingertip misses too. And another thing that I really like, he just sees the pressure well, right? When he's got a free rusher coming, he knows how to slide away from it, make the throw. And again, with the arm, the arm talent to me is good and NFL worthy. He just kind of lacks creation. And my biggest negative for him, and this is especially now, like after, I watched him, kind of did my write-up and then saw that he's a little older, is the panic throws, right? There's a few per game where it's like he's getting hit and he just chucks it. And it's like, well, this is going to be a duck every single time. And they didn't always lead to interceptions, but there was a few that went through defenders' hands and stuff. That was the thing that bothered me the most. And it's due simply to the lack of creation because there's nothing there. And he kind of, like a Michael Penix type, because he doesn't have that creation, he has a mindset of like, okay, I don't want to take a sack. I'm just going to fire it in to what I got. And he waits last second and gets these big hits while throwing the ball that leads to ducks that defensive lineman or whoever can intercept.
Grump.
I mean, I'll start with the clear-cut stuff, right? 6'4", 220 is a good NFL body. Start right there because for a while there we had a stretch of quarterbacks coming out that were 6 feet tall. Mechanically speaking, he looks the most sound to me. And I honestly, not even among this group, he looks very sound just in general. I think he looks more sound than some top quarterbacks that went this year, mechanically speaking. The arm talent, I'm going to agree with you. I think that, he doesn't have like necessarily a Josh Allen arm. It's not elite, but it's an NFL legit arm I think he certainly can fire a laser when he wants to. He'll really wind up and throw a pitch. And I think when he pushes the ball downfield, he does it with some pretty decent accuracy. The way he moves in the pocket, so he's not super athletic, but if he can do like a QB draw pretty well. He can run straight ahead well. He can run smartly. He knows when to slide, give himself up, and not take an unnecessary hit in the open field. But you're right. He's not much of a mobile guy. I think he moves well in the pocket, though. I think he manipulates the pocket very well. He looks natural. It doesn't look deliberate to me. He looks very, he knows what he's doing in the pocket. IQ wise, from what I can gather, what I look pre-snap, I think he sees everything just right. He sees the blitz, he throws to his hots. Post-snap, I think what you were saying with the panic throws, that's what I saw too. I think that there are some times where he's looking for something and it's not there, and then he might go through his progressions, but then you can see the panic throws. He doesn't really know what to do when things don't happen post-snap sometimes, I think. To me, that I wouldn't say that's his biggest issue that bothers me. It's certainly an issue. I think it's a common one among college quarterbacks, and he still has another year, right? But for me, my issue is kind of a passive, he's a little conservative. Like, I don't see him really test one-on-ones downfield. When he does push the ball downfield, to me, it feels like it's scripted offense to test the defense. So like, you'll see him throw into double coverage deep, and you can just tell by the pacing of the game, it just feels like, we've been doing way too many checkdowns. He just seems much more comfortable throwing checkdowns, and they're not wrong. It's not the wrong decision. It's not something to criticize, but I want a little bit of set of nuts on my quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, you live and die with Eli and Brett Favre. I'm not saying you necessarily have to be like that, but I would like to see one-on-ones tested, especially when you play at Georgia, where you have like a talent disparity 9 times out of 10 when you're playing.
Up front and receivers too, which, I mean, I think both of you are right, and I have to agree with everything. And I think the biggest thing mechanically for me, and I'm not a big mechanical guy, but biggest thing mechanically for me is his footwork. I mean, I just think he's such a balanced and solid and sound that he always seems to be under control. And I think his feet are really the thing that's kind of leading his, being under control, whether he is kind of throwing on the run or manipulating within the pocket. Like, I just see his feet. He's always in a position, I feel like, to throw the football and in a good spot. But to back up what Grump was just saying, he has a low big-time throw rate, which, hey, you have another year. Like, none of these guys that we're talking about had necessarily, like, big-time throw rates. And I think kind of, if you watch him, and if you watch a good amount of a sample size of throws, it's like, I kind of want to see some nuts on my quarterback, where he is the main reason and the sole reason why he's leading the team down the drive and winning football games, right? One of the lower average depths of target in the nation, third highest adjusted completion rate, which I think kind of backs up the whole low A-dot thing, and the quickest time to throw in the nation too. And that's
the nation, wow.
Yeah, the quickest. This wasn't just among draft eligible players, whatever. It was the quickest time in the nation. So I'm with Grump in that entirety, where I see these things mechanically that look good, but also Georgia's offensive line is good. I'm sure Georgia's skill position players, they're really good too. You had Brock Bowers there. I think his ball placement's good. I think he knows when to put back shoulder throws in some areas. But if we're talking about quarterbacks, and if we had this strong criticism of a guy like J.J. McCarthy this year of, I don't think he pushes the ball downfield enough and we want more out of a quarterback, I think you got to say the same thing about Carson Beck there, where he falls in a similar kind of category, even though, Bobby, I know you have him better than like a guy like J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, well, and the thing is I just think he reads the safeties well, right? Because, like, there's the safeties a lot of times versus Georgia, and in a sense, we're bailing, and he just took advantage of the middle of the field well with McConkey on those, throws outside the numbers. He did it well. But I do have a note. Like, there's times where he'll bail from a long developing concept. And I think part of that, though, is, and this is a negative, the lack of athleticism. Because he kind of has to get the ball out in a reasonable amount of time, or he's going to end up taking a sack. And he does a good job of avoiding those, but that leads to, like you said, bailing on some of this stuff. I actually thought in the Alabama game, though, one, Nick Saban just bent over Kirby Smart in that game. That defensive game plan was unbelievable. They did a great job of finding the things that Beck and Georgia like to do and bracketing them while also taking away the second read. And it really kind of just, like, in a sense, like disguise their coverage as well. Where it's like you could tell Beck has like, I'm reading this safety, and if he does this, I'm pulling this, and then just kind of undercutting and forcing him to get off of those, and then throw the ball away. And he also had some just bad dumb throws in that game too. So like I said, baited by disguise coverage is a note. Some of the pre-planned quick game stuff will get him in trouble. I think it also was Alabama where they dropped the interception where that outside corner shows like he's bailing, sits, squats on it like that little, two trap thing. And it almost gets intercepted. So, but to me, this is not a good quarterback class at least from the guys that we've watched so far. To me, he's just, you watch him throw and you're like, okay, this is the closest thing to NFL quarterbacking compared to the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel very close watching going through the next three guys.
So Justin brought up JJ McCarthy. And I would have them both similarly where they are. Now, I think McCarthy's age might give him a little bit of a bump where, again, I found that out afterwards when I was looking at like background info on them. I was like, oh, he's a redshirt junior. I thought he was a little younger. And then McCarthy has the athleticism and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just as like running an offense. I thought Beck did a better job this year for Georgia than what JJ McCarthy did at Michigan. It's just JJ McCarthy gives you the ability with the legs, and then obviously Michigan's ground game was just awesome this year. But as far as like reading safeties and then making throws outside the numbers, 15 plus yards down the field, I thought he did a much better job than what JJ McCarthy had put out there. So I would view, I had McCarthy as a high second rounder, and I think that's probably where Beck lies right now. Like he's going to have to make it. He's like you said, he's going to come in the league and he's going to be conservative to start. And the hope for him is like he's in a place that can kind of gradually build up that confidence in a way that it did for like Kirk Cousins, right? It reminds you a bit of Kirk Cousins, where Kirk Cousins early in his career was very conservative, right? To a point where Jay Gruden drove him nuts. And then now at this point of his career, he's pretty aggressive. Like he'll let it rip. And I think part of it is like Bowers and McConkey were their best two receivers too, right? So they weren't really designing a lot of stuff to throw 35, 40 plus yards down the field. There's a lot of middle of the field stuff with Bowers. And then, the outside the numbers stuff with Ladd McConkey.
That's true. I think if Carson Beck were to have declared for the draft this year, I would have ranked him from a talent-only standpoint ahead of JJ and after Michael Penix. But I think you could actually make an argument, given Penix's like injury history, that you would want Beck over Penix. I think you could make that argument, especially after whatever he does this year.
It'll be interesting to see how he grows. Like that, I know they played versus FSU, but that last game versus Alabama, like how does he learn from that type of stuff? So I think there's
the main thing that I really want to see. Yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off, but the main thing that I really want to see is, he was 29th in adjusted completion rate on deep passes, and he was 5th in adjusted completion rate on the intermediate part of the field. So Bobby, that backs up the whole, they play to their personnel, play to the strength of your personnel. But I do want to see, like, hey, you got to be able to push the ball down the field. This is a league of explosive plays. We know this, yada yada yada. You got to be in the top. For me, you got to be in the top 15 in an adjusted completion rate on those deep passes and just get more efficient there. And when I watch you, I got to be able to feel like you can lead an NFL team to win solely by just with what you can do. And right now, I feel like Carson Beck is good, but not good enough. Another year of growth.
All right, next guy we want to talk about, and I want to go through the next three guys kind of quick because again, this is the way too early. We're not doing this is our full draft preview or our watches. At least for me, are more casual than when I'm doing those the real ones. I want to talk about Connor Weigman, the quarterback out of Texas A&M, who's only had 4 starts this past year before he had a foot injury that put him out for the season. 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 8.2 yards per attempt, 69% completion percentage. So I watched his full game versus Miami, where he threw the ball over 50 times.
Me too.
My first comment is going to be, "Oh my God, Texas A&M! Have you ever thought that other teams might blitz? I mean, Miami was having free rushers all game long. Like they were getting this kid killed out there." And that's you saw the good in him, right? Because I view him as a gamer. right? Like he's got a good arm. I think on the deep balls, like the ball kind of dies around 55, 50 between that 50 to 60 yard range. Doesn't like totally flutter, but you can just tell. Like there should have been another interception that Miami had where the safety got his hands on it. But like I think Arndt, like he's got good velocity. He makes like different throws from all different types of like platforms and angles with pressure in his face. Like he's just a tough son of a bitch who took hit after hit after hit and then ended up getting injured versus Auburn. And then just like the gamer ability with his legs, like he makes guys miss in the pocket. He can go out and gain yards on the ground. But he's always looking to throw though. Like he's not making a guy miss and then putting his head down and looking to run like a lot of college quarterbacks do. So that's what I liked about him is the fact one, let's figure out how to pick up the pressure. But I like the way he dealt with pressure versus Miami, and I mean, and they were coming at them from all angles, and I thought he delivered pretty well. It's just there wasn't Texas A&M didn't give you much options to read. It felt like a very much look at this and throw it type of offense. So you don't like. There's not a lot of film of him processing or anything, but he's just got like a gamer ability to him. Like even times where it's like negative footwork, right? Footwork can be a real negative, and he'll slip. There was like multiple times where he would slip and then make a tough throw while doing it. So he like needs a lot of work. But I just like the aggression to throw over the middle of the field, put darts in, throw with anticipation, and then make plays with his legs.
Yeah, there were a couple times multiple players slipped on that shitty Miami field. A couple things about Connor for me. 6'3", 215. He's got the right look for me. I think that works at the NFL level. Obviously, with all college players, put on a little bit of muscle. But other than that, looks fine. Mechanically, I think the lower body, lots of cross feet, lots of narrow bases at times. The mechanics obviously need to be tightened up. But I think overall...
Especially upper body. Like when he's throwing, it looks like he's like turning his... Like
shot putting.
Yeah. It feels like he's shot putting the ball. That's a good way to describe it.
It's kind of weird, but... I don't know what to do other than to chalk up a lot of his negatives to a lack of battle experience. Because to me, it seems like you can see all the things that make him desirable as a quarterback and why he's in there to begin with. But like everything just feels like it comes from an area of not enough time doing this at the college level. Like the ability to move in the pocket is there, but it looks like a step too slow, like a tick too late. It doesn't look natural all the time. It looks very deliberate, like I'm supposed to move my feet this way at this time. I think sometimes the poise isn't there in the pocket. He freezes sometimes. And under pressure, I mean, that game he was under pressure pretty much the whole time, but he doesn't panic, like look down and run, but he can throw some boneheaded decision plays. And maybe that was an unfair game for me to watch because it seemed like the only time Texas A&M cared about the blitz and they were bringing in like max protection and he had two options to throw downfield. So, which is very Giants-esque. So maybe I
kind of hated what Texas A&M is doing on offense. Like like the route combinations were ugly. And then again, it was just play after play where it's like, what have you guys never prepared for a blitz ever in your life?
It also they didn't help that there were like 15 dropped passes in that game too. For me, it just feels like everything is time based for him. I see the appeal for Connor Weigman, but if he were to go in the NFL now, he would get killed. Also, he took way too many unnecessary hits in that game. There were a couple where he just like had somebody wrapped around his ankles and he just took one right to the mouth.
I think he Oh no, I think someone dropped that. That was early in the game. I think someone dropped it. But that's where I like him, like as a gamer wise. But like you said, like those hits get they
at the NFL level, he's not going to stand up from something like that.
I think a couple big things is that now Texas A&M is a completely different system because they have a new head coach now. So we'll see what that looks like. And I like that now he's going to be, at least if it's not good or great, it'll just be something different to compare. He has a baseball background, which certainly isn't surprising if you see the way that he throws, and especially the way that you guys are describing the way that he throws. Different arm slots, different arm angles, and things like that. And I think this is the most important thing. He's going to be just 21 years old at the time of the 2025 NFL Draft. So there's even a chance that we're talking about him next June during, or maybe we won't, but there's a chance that we could be talking about him again for the 2026 draft if he doesn't necessarily want to declare. And Grump, if you're saying that he needs time, if he needs more, if this is his first year in the system and he needs more time than this, I think he'll be able to take it. But it will be really tempting to have this 21-year-old that an NFL coach can craft with all of this upside. And if he shows even decent stuff this year, I'm sure maybe he'll take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think he's the guy out of the ones we've looked at whose stock can rise the most.
Yeah.
Like, Beck can get better at certain things. Shedeur, I don't see like big strides happening in Shedeur's game. And then we'll talk about Donavon Smith. There could be big strides there. I just don't see it happening. But he's the one you could see that. But again, I was hoping we would get like an when I saw what Trevor Sikkema tweeted, like when he put his list as one, and I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be an exciting Anthony Richardson. Where I went into Anthony Richardson, like, okay, let's look at this guy, and I was like, oh, this is actually really intriguing. Like, this guy can ball. I don't have any of the same feelings with Weigman that I did with Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago when we did this episode.
Well, he's not that good. No,
that's what I'm saying. I was kind of hoping that. I was like, okay, maybe he's ahead of the curve, and I was just like, probably like a 3rd round pick in the NFL. Shedeur Sanders, the most controversial quarterback since Tim Tebow. I don't know. Out of Colorado. Grump, why don't you talk to us about Shedeur?
So there's a couple things that jump. I don't want to harp on this too much, but I do think that Shedeur Sanders is going to have to battle his dad as part of like a draft problem, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, you would have to think he's going to fall farther than what his talent and film suggests. Because, there's just an immaturity there.
But there's just no way that Dion is not going to be. It's hard for me to imagine.
Teams aren't going to want to deal with that shit,
exactly,
with their quarterback. Yeah. They'll deal with it with any other position, not with their quarterback.
I just don't know. It's hard for me to think of a scenario where Deion Sanders isn't being asked to comment on this, that, and the other thing. Like, even if Deion tries to stay out of it, the media is going to try and get him to be in it. And that's one issue right there with Shedeur that I don't know the answer for. The other issue is that he's 6'2". He has a size issue. It is a thing. 6'2" is probably okay for the NFL, but I
think he's fine size-wise.
I think he's probably okay. And then the third thing, arm talent. I'm not sure how far down the field Shedeur can really push the ball without lollipopping it. Some of these longer throws look like mortar shots. In the NFL, free safeties just have speed where that's not going to fly.
Yeah, the NFL, the arm's just average, right? Like, it's an NFL arm, but it's an average.
I actually think
arm.
He can
now
drive
they're pretty balls, right? Like, he throws a pretty football down the field, but like you said, like they float for a long, long time. Which when they get there, it looks beautiful. But like you said, safeties are just going to be playing at a different level, especially compared to the defenses he was playing in Pac-12.
I actually think that he can drive the ball towards the middle of the field fine, and the numbers actually kind of back that up. And I know some of his highlight throws, especially earlier in the year, included the left sideline, but I also think he has a problem of throwing it towards the left sideline, no matter what area of the field. We're talking short, intermediate, and deep, but especially intermediate and deep. I think he just struggles throwing with that left side, but I think he has an arm to drive it towards the middle of the field when I think he can kind of plant that back leg down and really get it towar's the center part of the field.
Yeah, he's got good mechanics.
But
he lines shit up and everything as well. It's just, like you said, it's just a talent. The arm's just lacking.
Yeah, but when you're talking about the sideline stuff, that's where I think you can maybe run into some issues. So I'm interested to see if there's growth there this year.
Yeah.
But like, I think he runs that offense really well, especially with like the quick game stuff. He gets it out really well. He knows when there's times to, throw the ball down the field, which I think he does with pretty good accuracy. He has some misses here and there.
There's a lot of yak in that offense.
Yeah. And it depends on what game you're watching. If you watch TCU, you're like, what the hell is TCU doing? But then you watch other games, but like I thought he did pretty damn well this past year. It's just translating to the NFL. The other thing is like the taking of the sacks, right? He's just kind of will take a sack instead of making the tough And again, the offense just doesn't ask a ton out of them, and they spread it out so wide where it's like, how much of this even translates? You know, and he just kind of holds the ball way too long when he doesn't see it, the ball is just staying in his hands for way too long.
Yeah,
which I'm sure his time to throw is quick, right? Because they have so much quick game in the offense.
Well, you want to know the funny thing is that his time to throw was, I believe, at 2.89 seconds, which is almost 3 seconds. So it's not the top of the nation. There are some guys that have like over 3 seconds. But there are certain times where he gets the ball out of his hands quick, but then there are certain times where he really does hold the ball. So I think that's like fair. It's high. Maybe it's not as high as you think, but 2.89 seconds is an eternity in the NFL. So these guys are going to have to adjust. But he was 23rd in pressure to sack ratio, and this is in the nation, and that's 25%. So that number's not great. 25% pressure to sack ratio is not very good, and he was ninth.
He thinks
in the
he's
nation.
a better athlete than what he is.
Yeah, you know what?
He even shows with the way he carries, because he had a bunch of fumbles too, because he's careless. Like, you could tell he feels like he's a way better athlete than what he is, and he's
not half as fast as he thinks he is. I think all of that stuff that you guys just said comes down to a couple things. The talent at Colorado. As soon as Travis Hunter went down, I think that he had to stay in the pocket longer because guys weren't getting open fast. Because Travis Hunter is a clear best wide receiver on that team. And once he got hurt and wasn't playing, now you don't have guys getting open immediately. He's got to try and deal with the offensive line, which was no goddamn good. And then he tried to, like you said, like tried to do more himself. He put it on himself to make things happen. He's not nearly as athletic as he thinks he is. And he ended up being careless with the football, taking unnecessary hits, all that kind of stuff. I think it all kind of steamrolled right there. I think as a quarterback between the ears running the offense, I think he's there. I think that's all pretty good.
Let me ask you this, because you watch more college ball. Is Colorado going to be more talented this year, or they I know because they kind of had like a guys transferring. Like, are they going to be more talented this year?
That I don't know.
Is Travis Hunter going to play if Travis Hunter probably for his own good shouldn't play both ways this year? Like, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know, but I know they're going to get everyone's best shot, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Shedeur.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to get better or not because I had heard that a bunch of guys are transferring out. I don't usually pay attention too much to the transfer portal unless it's like a huge name. We'll see. As far as Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball, I don't think any player really should do that unless you're absolutely elite at it. I wouldn't say he's an elite wide receiver, would you?
No, but like you said, he's clearly their best by a wide margin. He has a drop problem, but he gets open. Yeah. And he makes some like crazy acrobatic catches too.
He's a really good athlete. That kid is probably the best player on that team.
We're going to talk about him on the defensive episode, which I'm excited for.
Me too.
Yeah, but where I think Sanders has a shot simply because he can move, he can improvise, and the arm talent enough seems to be there. Where there's a lot of good plays that he has on tape of throwing on the run too. I appreciate the non Jaden Daniels effect of that's what I was a little worried when I was going to watch Shedeur Sanders, that he would have a little bit of a Jaden Daniels effect of, okay, well, if you're going to run and you're going to improvise, don't just scramble. He was 9th in the nation in scramble attempts last year, but I thought a good amount. His eyes were still going downfield, and he wasn't looking to scramble. So I was kind of happy to see that, and I maybe could be wrong with this. I was happy to see that, all right, we're looking to throw the ball within the pocket. We're looking to even move within the pocket, but if we want to extend the play in any way, we can and run, and then we're not just running to scramble, or we're not just moving to scramble, we're moving to continue to look downfield. So that is one thing that I appreciate in Shedeur Sanders, and like there is a path. Like that's the stuff that I just like. That's like the buzz stuff that I just like to see in quarterbacks today, and that's why I think he has a shot at being, the modern day NFL quarterback that you want.
Let's finish off the QBs with Donavon Smith, quarterback out of Houston. I want to go quick with this one. 6'5", 230 pounds. He's big. I want to keep it quick. He's a big arm QB who can make some plays with his legs, but struggles badly with accuracy. I mean, he's just flat out inaccurate. Which, hey, accuracy we've seen over the last few years can get better with guys. Where it used to be a thing that you just like accuracy can't be taught. The whole Mike Leach thing, which I used to take as gospel. I do not take it anymore. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. The Houston offense is kind of simple. I went through a film stream of Donavon Smith, Grump, and I a quarter of the way in, which I'm not like doing a film review on their offense. I'm doing it on him. I was like, oh, I know what play's coming. Like they run the same play like 4 times each game, and they'll just mirror it. You know, they'll like, okay, now let's flip it. Let's press L2 or whatever you press on Madden to flip a play. And I was already figuring out what they were doing. But I did think he like processed the field fairly well. It'll be a little bit tick late, but I like the way he would like move his safety with his eyes and then turn and pull the trigger on throws. It's just the fact that he's really inaccurate, and there's a lot of like stuff from Houston that doesn't translate. And he just has like these dumb. I mean, 13 interceptions. Like that's a lot of interceptions.
Yeah, that was crazy. And something to note too is it's concerning when you see the inaccuracy when he has a lower average depth of target than Carson, Beck, and Shedeur Sanders. Who Carson, Beck, and Shedeur Sanders had like almost the same average depth of target, and Donavon Smith was even lower with like 8.
Yeah, he struggles with pressure a lot too.
So one of the things that I noticed, I have at least written down, is his accuracy is incredibly affected by his lower body mechanics. And you can see it in his drop back. His lower body, I don't want to say lazy, I'll say casual. He looks a little too casual in his lower body. And he looks way too comfortable. This is another guy that thinks he's more athletic than he really is. He's mobile enough, but he ain't fast. So I think at times he ends up moving a little bit out of the pocket, and like he gets really comfortable throwing from unconventional bases, and he's not good at that. When he has his feet set and he delivers a throw, it's usually pretty accurate. What I notice is a lot of times he's like throwing off of his front foot and stuff, and like just kind of like running around and like jump throwing passes that didn't need to happen. And like the accuracy was garbage. I mean, he was like spiking the ball into the ground on some, airmailing it on others.
The Texas game drove me nuts. There's a 4th down in the game. Shit got open, and he just totally misses it.
Totally missed it. I actually watched that game. But I do think that I think that there's some, for what there is in the Houston offense, it's mostly like a one-look read, it looked like to me. But there is some level when he has to improvise. You can see he's kind of like manipulating DBs with his eyes and his head. Like I think that the talent might be hidden in there that's hard for us to see in that offense. And, with all the other issues that he has.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's like a lot of improvised plays that are good, and then, Texas again, where he had an interception where it's like, okay, good, improvising, found a guy, and he just misses him by 10 yards and throws an interception. So it's just the accuracy has to get like miles better for you to even consider drafting him on day 2 of the draft. And even then, it's a worry. So can we finish with the quarterbacks? I want to talk about the other positions. They're more fun.
Yes. Can I talk about DraftKings first?
Yes, you can talk about DraftKings before we talk about the fun stuff.
Bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, bases loaded, and you're down by 3, Grump, and the crowd is on their feet. And the drama of baseball is so real, it's not fake, and so is all the action at the DraftKings Sportsbook. For the first pitch of the final out, DraftKings, they got you covered with same-game parlays, live betting odds boosts, and so much more. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers, you bet just $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. I want you to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code WORLD. If you don't use that code, you're on the world side, and that's not good. New customers who bet just $5 get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's also, you get money when you use promo code WORLD. That's code WORLD only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/baseball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. Bobby Skinner and Grump, you'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did.
All right. No, I don't love the offensive talent the same way we did last year when we did this episode. But I want to talk about a wide receiver, even though the Giants drafted a wide receiver in the first round. But again, I'm a fan of the double dip at positions. And we don't know if the Giants are going to be in a situation to pick a quarterback, whatever. And I actually think this guy could be someone who's like I think in this past year's draft, he probably would have went in the top of the second round. And that is Arizona wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan, 6'5", 210 pounds. He had 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns this past year for Arizona on a 70% catch rate. I'm excited to see what you think of him, Grump, because you could be a little more critical on receivers than me sometimes.
Oh man, I'm gonna slam on him too. Go ahead.
You are.
Yeah.
So I know people just don't like contested catch guys anymore. And that is what McMillan is, right? He doesn't get a ton of separation, but he is a ball winner. But here's why I like him more than, I don't know, let's say Johnny Wilson. Fuck Johnny Wilson, he sucks. I'm not even gonna compare him.
Do you like Xavier Legette more or this guy more?
Or Keon Coleman? Well,
I like this guy more than both those guys.
Okay.
Because of the athleticism, right? And I think he's a much more smooth player than those guys. Like, he's got the striding speed is better than those guys. Now I think his get off has a little bit of a hitch, but he's smooth. And the route running stuff, like in the quick game, it needs to be more crisp, right? When he's working the intermediate game, it's like, man, you got to have more burst out of it. But then you see these flashes of like really smooth transitions. There was can't remember who I was watching him against, where he just ran a whip route. I was like, oh, this is like what you want out of any wide receiver running this whip route. So like he's got a lot of areas to grow in the quick game and intermediate game as a route runner, but it's not just because he's slow and he's kind of lumbering. No, it's just he needs to work on his route running, and he can see it there. So I like him. I think he's got the athleticism. I think he's smooth enough. You see him work good releases, work good at the stem at times. And again, he's just like an ultimate ball winner too with that size. Catches everything that comes his way. And, you know, depending on who's at quarterback, I think he could be a nice mix with Malik Neighbors.
I actually did like an actual write-up on this. So to me, so 6'5", 210, tall and lean wide receiver. The catch radius is enormous, and he has really, really good hands. I think that his hands are the best attribute that he has.
Catches everything.
Literally, there's tons of guys that are really tall or really long, but they don't make the most of their catch radius. This dude absolutely makes the most of his catch radius, and he's really, really smooth, soft hands. Totally agree about lacking the quickness and top speed. He's not going to be a true number one wide receiver. The top speed eventually gets to something that looks like 4.5 to me, which at the NFL is not fast, but it's not slow. I would never call that slow. But the quickness, you can see the get off is simply not there. It's very much like my car trying to get to 60 miles an hour.
You just got like this hitch in it.
Yeah. At the NFL level, like at the college level, he kind of gets away with it. You know, I don't know. Arizona's in the Big 12 now. I don't know how that's going to translate, but at the NFL level, I'm not really sure that you can improve that. I don't know that his get off is going to get better. And that's a huge problem for me. The other big problem I have, and I totally agree that the separation is not there. That's not who he is, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with guys being contested catch guys. My problem is he's not physically dominant for 6'5". 210 is light. His arms are slender, and he doesn't win body position battles at times. Like, I want to see him be more aggressive physically. He doesn't win jams sometimes at the line of scrimmage. Like, be 6'5", you know, get stronger, like win these physical matchups, because that's where he's going to win. And that's what I'm not seeing. And that's where I am just kind of blah on him. I do agree that I like him better than like everybody that we mentioned, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette. Like, I do like him, but I thought I was going to be wowed by him, and I wasn't that wowed.
So I agree and disagree with that. The agree part is the physicality as far as like getting off the line. There's times where he got rerouted, you know, even some, you know, supposed to be rerouted 10 yards down the field, but it happens, and that there. But at the catch point, I think like he catches everything that I think he positions himself pretty well and just catches everything that goes his way and can get big on them. But I agree with the physicality part on that. But here, and this is why I'm higher on him for this. It's not coming out right now, but why I think I can end up much higher on him at the draft time next year than I am right now. Because I just think he has the athleticism to be a Drake London.
Mm.
Like, he reminds me athletically of Drake London, right? Like, and now Drake London is a better route runner than him, but that's where he needs to grow. And that's where a young wide receiver should grow. Like, he should grow as a route runner in the quick game, but like there's too many times where he just telegraphs the route that he's running, whether it's an out, whether it's a sit route, whatever. Like he telegraphs it, and then in the intermediate game, it's like you sell, you do more, but you see the glimpses of it. So like, okay, it is in there. So again, right now I have him as a high second rounder, but I can see him me saying he's worthy of a top 15 pick come the draft next year.
Even if he doesn't hit the weight room as an improvement, to me, where he was most electric was on that quick game. If he can really nail the slant route, and like there were times where he caught the slant and ran, he got all this yak because he is pretty fast when he is in his stride. My problem is when you watch the route, like the break point is garbage. Like there's the wasted step in there. Like if he could nail that, that could be his bread and butter. Like I don't even care about the physicality downfield at the catch point, any of the points right there. Like if he can really nail that because of his smooth hands, like he really does pluck the ball right out of the air really, really smoothly and just take it in stride. Not a lot of unnecessary jumping, none of that shit. Like I would like to see that as the bigger improvement right there.
But why I'm higher, and I said this point in like 5 different ways, is that I think it's in there where it's not this big clunky guy where it's like, oh, well, he's just big and clunky. Like, yeah, he's a contested catch guy, but he's not smooth. But it's like, I see it in there to be brought out. He just needs to become a better route runner, and it's in there where there's these big clunky guys sometimes where it's like, yeah, that's sick that you're a contested catch guy, but you're never going to be open for an NFL quarterback besides a handful of contested catch opportunities where I see it in there with McMillan.
Yeah, and among guys with 75 targets, he was 18th in the nation last year in yards per route run. Romo Dunze was 16th, and Malachi Corley was 19th. Just give you a little context on where he was ranked. And he had the most contested catch opportunities in the nation last year at 34, and he was second in the nation, tied for second in the nation with 17 contested catches. So that's a contested catch rate of 50%. And amongst all the guys, and I'm looking at around the guys in the top 10 or top 7-ish, he had the highest contested catch rate among the top guys, maybe besides Rashad Owens and then Romo Dunze had like a 75% contested catch rate too. Luke McCaffrey was pretty high up there too.
And these are some of the things I was saying about Odunze last year, right? I wasn't as high as Odunze. Like last year, Odunze was out of the 5 wide receivers we looked at was probably 4th or 5th for me, and then he really jumped up. So these are the things I want to see because like Odunze, he has it in there in him.
Yeah, and McMillan, 2.2% drop rate, which is the lowest drop rate among the top 25 players in yards per route run last year. And great news for him, he just turned 21 years old in April. So by next draft, he'll be 22 years old. And that I feel like that's like a really perfect age that if you really want to come out and, there's certainly not going to be NFL teams saying, oh, this guy's too old or anything.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Colston Loveland, the tight end of Michigan. Didn't you hear? Darren Waller retired. 6'5", 245 pounds. I thought I was going to like him more than I did based off of watching J.J. McCarthy because he has some really good highlight plays. But he had 650 receiving yards, was the second leading receiver for Michigan after Roman Wilson last year on a 72% catch rate. And that was with splitting reps with A.J. Barner, who they basically split reps fairly even. He is a wide tight end who has a lot of flex reps. Like he was 50-50 in line and then flexed out. For someone his size, he's got athleticism. He's just a smooth mover and a legitimately good route runner. You see him challenge up the seams. J.J. McCarthy hit him for a couple touchdowns that way, where he knows how to control his body and make tough catches. And I think he's a legit route runner. I think for me to get higher on him though, I want to see more strength. Right? There's times where it's like good blocking technique, but it's like just need more strength. But that should happen for guys, with another year in college. And I think he's a good athlete. He's not this tight end where we're coming out of the combine and going, oh my God, how'd this guy do this? What do you got on him, Grump?
I have him as a do-it-all style tight end. He has the length and the speed to match too. 6'5", 245 is pretty legitimate. Maybe you guys can correct me on this, but it seemed to me like he ran a very diverse route tree.
He runs legit routes.
Yeah. This is a legit route runner. And I think that when I say do it all tight end, I mean somebody like Travis Kelce is like the model there, right? But if he's going to be Travis Kelce, if that's what his NFL destination is going to be, he needs to do a little bit better downfield other than just colliding with a DB and then breaking play. Like I watched,
who did a good job of that with him? Tyler Nubin. Where it's like the route running kind of, like you said, collapses around. Like you said, he just kind of ran into him.
Yeah. I mean, like, so I didn't watch a Minnesota game. I watched Penn State and I watched Rutgers. And there were multiple times where, they show the replay and he just runs into the DB and then makes a left turn. Like, that's not going to fly at the NFL level. It was way beyond 5 yards downfield. He's got to do that a lot less. I completely agree. I think as a blocker, the technique is absolutely there, both in the run game and the pass game, which is some diversity that tight ends don't usually have. But it's a lack of good weight, I think, in the hips, ass, and thighs, right? If he can put on some good muscle in the lower body, he has like the technique down. It will assist him in not failing these blocks. I love Colston Loveland. I think if he makes all the proper leaps this year, he'll be without question the number 1 tight end coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched any other tight ends, but he has the makes of that, right? Like if in this past class he would have been tight end 2 after Brock Bowers. Like if he just came out last year, he would have been tight end 2 after Brock Bowers.
He's going to be 21 next year. Which
again, it's like you see, like so he be like you said, like Grump said, like he has all the ability to become a do it all type of guy, and that's the way that he plays. And again, he's just like. He can stop quickly, right? He finds the ball in zone. He can, especially J.J. McCarthy, who liked this, to scramble when it wasn't there. Like he would go and like find him and make himself open for it. He's got like strong, subtle push offs that aren't obvious. Like the way Theo Johnson sometimes is just like, man, you're gonna get offensive pass interference the way you push off. But like he does it nice and subtly.
I'll hit you with two negatives on him. One, for my liking, I think that he leaves his feet too often at the catch point when he doesn't need to. And it's something that will absolutely slow you down. I don't know why so many players do it. And then the other thing is I think he struggles to change his running style from running a route to trying to break a tackle. Like he needs to like kick his knees. He really struggles to break tackles at times when it's just like, dude, he's got you by the ankles. You break that and there's nobody in front of you. And he just doesn't do it. So those are 2 areas that I think he can improve.
Yeah, to the top tight ends in yards per route run, like I mentioned, Brock Bowers had 18 missed tackles forced. Harold Fannin Jr. had 13. It's not, you don't say Sanat, it's actually something different, but I'm saying it wrong intentionally. I know I'm saying it wrong. Ben Sanat 14, and then even like Jaheim Bell 12, and then it's like Colston Loveland had 4. So definitely breaking these steps. What's up with Big Ten tight ends and just can't make guys miss tackles? How about that?
Big Ten. Guess what, guys?
What?
Offensive tackles are back on the menu. Unfortunately, I was hoping for every offensive tackle draft preview to be boring for the next 8 years. Doesn't look like it's going to be that. We're going to talk about Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU, 6'6", 320 pounds, long offensive tackle. Let's just talk about it. His stance is so weird. Why is it like that?
What the hell is that? He's just standing.
Yeah, it's like his feet are like touching and he's standing straight up. I don't understand it. And why is it not being fixed?
Have we had that with LSU before?
You know what it reminds me of Darnell Wright's stance a little bit out of Tennessee a couple of years ago. Right? And they kind of remind me a little bit of each other as players wise. I like Campbell more than Darnell Wright. Yeah, it's just a really weird stance, and I think it screws him in the run game. Where it's like you see like some really dominant run reps, but it's like, man, he closes space well, but it's just like, but what is this? Like you're just slowing yourself down, and it also makes it hard to like judge his pass sets because it just kind of leaves things discombobulated. But here's where he's really good. One, he's got the functional strength to just handle stuff, despite the fact that he will give up a bull rush because he has a high pad level due to the stance. But man, he just keeps the perfect proportion with edge rushers, right? Like Dallas Turner, Prince, I forget the guy's name from Florida, even Verse, which I think Verse got the better of him. Like he just keeps the perfect proportion with those guys where like, so he's never getting beat around the corner. He's not getting beat on inside moves. The issue is just with that pad level, he's got like, bring the pad level down because he's a strong guy. Like, yeah, the punch and stuff needs to be fixed, but like Verse was able to kind of, grown man him a few times, and that was disappointing for someone who seems as strong as he is. Like, why is LSU not fixing that stance? It drives me nuts.
I don't even know how that stance is legal. But I really like Will Campbell. He looks like a very solid tackle, and being 6'6", 320, like that's an NFL body already, and it shows. Like he can kind of lean into his body weight and win things. What really strikes me is I think that his upper body is really, really good. Like a lot of really good hand fighting, hand technique, in my opinion. Like he
good,
can grab
strong hand grip too.
Yeah. My thing with him, and I'm gonna kind of lean on you a little bit, Bobby. He looks a little heavy-footed. It's not that his feet are necessarily bad, but like just really kind of stomping around out there. And when he makes a misstep, I saw a couple times where he ends up getting beaten on the inside because it just looks like his feet are, I don't want to say slow, but they're just so deliberate. The motion is kind of slow. Like,
yeah, I have athleticism as above average. Foot speed is good, but not great. So like I have those things down there. And there's just times where when there was power brought, where they were able to like slide off of him, especially to the inside. Like it's that post foot that was a little weak.
Yeah, and I the only other real negative note I have on him is simply that from time to time it felt like he was just leaning on his size. He's just relying on that to win. And I think at the NFL level, like he's going to have to be a consistent technician. It's just how it is.
And he has to just fix the stance. Like shout out Evan Neal, stance change first. Like stance change.
That's I didn't even know what to make of that. My note on this shows my lack of confidence in what I was talking about. It put stance is basically just standing ? Yeah. I don't know what to make with that.
So I wanted. Go ahead, Justin.
No, he was 11th in pass blocking efficiency in those true pass sets. Dominic Pooney was right behind him, and then even Thais Fuaga was right above him, and he was even a little bit better than J.C. Latham too. So Bobby, what I want to know what grade you would have on him.
A low first. So like in this last class, I would have all Fashanu and Fuaga ahead of him. But again, he's got another year of growth to happen. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it could change. Like, I need to see the stance change. Like, legit. I know it sounds stupid to harp on something, but it needs to change.
No, it's not stupid at all. You turn it on, it's the first thing you notice is somebody standing.
Yeah, it's so weird. All right, so we're going to finish here. We were going to talk Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas. I'm going to go quick. 6'4", 324, sloppy, needs to move to guard the NFL. Could want him. But want to keep this to under an hour. Grump, we're not going to thank you because you'll be back on Friday for the defense. I'm more excited for the defensive draft preview, so you guys got to stay tuned for that.
I'm excited to be back. And
I'm excited for it too. Justin, good job. Grump, good job. Bobby, average job. Honestly, not one of my best way too early offensive draft previews. I'm going to hand up on that. Need to get a new laptop charger with having to do it all at the desk instead of sitting comfortably today. All right, we appreciate you guys. We will see you on Friday. Until then, let's go,
Big Blue.